Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, TeenyTinyRealtor. I'm Carly, if you haven't met me before. I'm part of the Quayle and Becton team with Keller Williams. And I wanted to answer a question that most people ask me when they're looking to start their home buying process. And you've probably thought this too if you've been there, is how much money do I save or do I come up with to close on a house? And I feel like it's commonly misconstrued to be way more than you need or way less. I've had people come up to me, I only have $13,000, and I'm like, we're okay for the price range you're looking for $150,000, $200,000 house. But then I've also had people come up to me and say, yeah, I saved. I'm like, awesome. We start to look at houses, we start to do some paperwork, and then I'm like, okay, so how much did you set aside? And they have set aside $2,000, which is not easily done. Sometimes it's possible, and sometimes it's just way under the mark. And so I want to break it down for you, have it be a little bit more simple to understand, and maybe you can even do this math yourself. So there are a few buckets that I like to break it down into, and the first bucket is going to be your earnest or your escrow. And then also you've got your down payment, and then you've got your closing cost. So what we'll do is I'll give you an idea of the percentages for those, and then we'll do a formula at the end to give you an example of what to anticipate. So the first part is going to be the escrow, the earnest money. That is the money that we give to the sellers, the owners, that says, hey, I'm serious about this. Now, feel good knowing that that's not money that's just being thrown out the window. It does go towards your closing cost, and it will be deducted from that amount. So money or earnest money, I suggest 1% of the purchase price on average, but you can always do higher, especially if you're very serious about the house, because say there's 3 offers on a house and it's a $150,000 house. 2 people do $1,500, but then we love this house, so we want to show how serious we are, so we do $2,500. If all other aspects of those offers are the same, besides our escrow, they will pick us. Very likely. So something to consider, and once again, it's not open-ended. You're going to get that towards your closing costs, so you're not just wasting money by doing that. And then the second bucket is going to be your down payment, which varies based on your loan type. Now, I will be doing a video next week on different loans, so I'm going to brief over this, but rest easy knowing that if you're not super familiar, watch next week's video and I'll break down qualifications, requirements for each of these types of loans. So for conventional, 3% of the purchase price would be for your deposit. Now that's the extra qualified buyer, that's the ideal buyer, that's the one that most owners really want to take on because it's a cleaner closing, there's less requirements by the lender, so you're not going to have to jump through as many hoops per se. Now that doesn't mean that anything other than that is a bad option, because the next option is FHA, and that's what most people have. I think most of the buyers that I work with are FHA, and I've never really had an issue getting an FHA offer accepted. So don't feel like you're in a sinking ship if you have an FHA loan approval, so that's okay. And then an FHA, it's more of a flexible type of loan when it comes to you're not going to have to fork out a large amount for your deposit. Once again, you're 3.54% for your deposit when you're going towards paying down on your loan. And then VA is, of course, a veteran's loan, and that is no money down for your deposit. Now, that's the only difference, and I'm going to clear it up real easy. The only difference for the VA loans is that they don't have to come up with a deposit. They do still have escrow, and they do still have their closing cost, unless negotiated. If for whatever reason we negotiate the closing cost on a VA loan and you have escrow, then that will either be returned to you from the closing costs being covered, or pay off the small amount that's left and then return to you. So just keep in mind that even if you have a VA loan, you still have to come up with some money. It's not a free house. So Next option is USDA loans. Those are for select properties in select areas. And you have to have certain ratios to be approved through USDA when it comes to DTI and all of that. And like I said, I'll go over that in the next video. So tune in for that because I know it can be a little bit blurry. But to repeat that, to clarify, 0% down for VA and 0% down for USDA, and to trace back, conventional as low as 3%. It can go as high as 20% for conventional. It really is just a matter of what type of loan that you're going for. And then the following bucket, the last of the three, is your closing cost. On average, that's going to be 3 to 4% of the purchase price. And what that consists of is a lot of prepaid items. You've got inspections, you've got appraisals, fees to all parties involved. So on average, 3 to 4%, and these are things that get paid at the closing table. So time frame, once again, so you have a little bit of clarity on the situation. Escrow earnest money is going to be paid within 3 days, 72 hours, once your contract is executed, which means all parties have signed on it. And from that day, 72 hours later, by then you have to have your escrow paid, which is that 1% of the purchase price. And then the down payment as well as the closing costs are going to be at the closing table about 4 weeks later. So that's another one of those like wiring situations where all of that comes together in a lump sum. So now that you have a brief perspective on how to do it, I'm going to give you a very easy example so you guys can break down yourself based on purchase price. Now, keep in mind, this is an example with little variables. There's plenty of variables that can be in your situation that are going to affect this. Different variants on credit, different variables on your DTI, different variables with that. But this is going to give you a brief idea and an estimate so you don't go into this blind trying to understand, oh, I saved $2,000, or maybe you could have bought 6 months ago because you had $10,000. So let's get into this example, and then maybe you'll have a better tool to understand this. So just to start, this is a $150,000 home. Pretty average for your standard family, depending on the area. And for escrow, the formula is the $150,000 times 0.01. That's going to give you 1% of the full purchase price amount, which is $1,500. So your escrow, your earnest money, is what would go forth in that first 3 days, so that would be that $1,500. My advice is when you are trying to purchase, have this set aside and have it sitting in a bank account for a certain amount of time. Don't say, okay, well, I'm going to make $3,000 next month, so I'll just take half of that and use it for my escrow. Have it set aside so it's not a stressful situation, because while you may think that it might take 3 months to find a house, you may find it on your first interaction with your realtor, depending how good they are. Now, the next process is your down payment. Because two of the options are going to be conventional FHA between 3 and 4%, I did a very simple example of $150,000 times 0.03, which is going to bring that total to $4,500. So that would be your down payment, the one that's going towards the deposit. For the closing cost, the formula is going to be $150,000 times 0.04, which that total is going to come to $6,000. So what you're looking at now is not $1,500 plus $4,500 plus $6,000, because remember, the escrow is deducted from that total. So $4,500 plus $6,000 is going to be $10,500. That's your total out of pocket at this point. That's for $150,000. You're looking at $10,500. Now, that is the total raw number if no negotiations have taken place for your closing costs. Remember when I said that in the beginning? It is not mandatory every single time that you have to pay your closing costs. Now, keep in mind, If you can do this and you can afford it, you will win a lot more negotiations. Unfortunately, if people only set aside enough to cover their escrow and their down payment, and they go into it knowing, hey, I can't afford closing costs, we can negotiate within a contract saying, hey, we really like this house and we're going to offer this, but please give us a seller's credit towards concessions of 3% or $5,000 towards our closing costs. You may win that deal, or if there's, in a seller's market, there's 10 buyers for every one house. It's not the most competitive offer, but it's not impossible. So just know going into it, if you can't cover your closing costs, you may lose one or two houses that you love. So setting aside these funds in preparation to purchase is probably going to be the best way to successfully ensure that you will get the house that you want. Math requires caffeine. Sorry, guys. But that's a really simple breakdown to get a perspective of the reality of what you need to save. Now, you won't know what loan you're qualified for until you speak with a lender. You can't say, well, I'm going to get a conventional loan because that's the ideal one. We don't know until we talk to the professionals. And your realtor won't know that either. That is something that a qualified lender is going to be able to give you the answer to. So keep in mind your realtor is going to have the source for you to get to it and can give you an estimate like I just did, but it could vary to be a little bit more or a little bit less based on the numbers that you bring to the table. So rest easy knowing that you have a great example to base this on, and that way you can start saving. You can set aside the next 6 months of your life to start tucking away money so that when the summer comes again, or maybe when the kids are moving from school to school, that you'll be able to designate not only that time frame, but that amount of funds to where you're not scrambling trying to make it happen. So I hope that was helpful to you guys. Tune in next week so I can go into more details about the different types of loans, conventional, VA, USDA, FHA, and the qualifications for that. We can get into credit, we can get into DTI, and all of those fun details when it comes to math. And hopefully that'll give you a better perspective of what to anticipate so you don't feel like you're going into this blind. So many people do, and I hate to disappoint people when they say, oh, well, I haven't really saved. I have $2,000, $3,000, and I will promise you, I will do my best to make that happen. And I have made it happen once or twice, but being completely frank with you, it is much easier on all parties involved and less disappointment for you if you can save before you start this process. So hopefully this will help you with a guide on how to save and what to save. And if you have any questions that I didn't touch base on, or if I skipped over too quickly, please comment below and I'll be sure to highlight on those and really give a better perspective. And if you have any detailed questions that you really want to have some one-on-one help with, comment your email and I will send you an email and we can get together and talk about these, or I can FaceTime you depending on where you are in the country or the state, and hopefully I can help. So you guys have a great day. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, next week I'm going over loans, so tune in. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.